Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Hey, that helps when I push the right button. I am Russ Evans sitting in the seat for Chris, and I have to push the one that says Chris, not Russ. So here we are, ready to go. Under the hood, 866-594-4150. How you doing, Shannon Nordstrom?
Hey, I'm ready to tune up. We got that all messed
There
up.
we go. I'm Russ Evans. Thanks for joining us under the hood.
I'm Shannon Nordstrom. Welcome, Hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
That's better.
Yeah, there we go. That was just kind of like redo. We got it. We got it.
You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
Yeah. We don't have Chris today, but we're going to make it work.
Don't you love it when he calls in? That I know if he's going to call in, it's usually not like a week before.
No,
it's usually
he's a good planner. He's already told us, the live show on December 7th or something, he's not going to be here. And we all do pretty good about that, but just sometimes nature calls.
Oh, that's sad.
Nature didn't call, but we do have Bruce.
Bruce called, so we're gonna go to the line and we're gonna talk to Bruce, who's got a 2008 CR-V, and he's in Ohio. How you doing, Bruce?
Well, doing pretty good. Thanks for taking the call. I'm actually in Kentucky. I'm from Ohio, but I'm visiting family. So.
Oh, but you're in Kentucky right now.
Yeah.
Did you make the right choice? Is it the right
that
time of year for the weather?
It's pretty nice. Mid-60s. Pretty sunny right now, so I'm in T-shirt and that right now, so not bad.
All right. How's that? What's up with the CR-V?
In the last month here, it doesn't do it every time, but I'll get on the highway and a few miles down the road, I'll get a vibration in the whole car and the steering wheel. And then when I got off the highway, I was getting a squeak from the right front. And it doesn't do it every time, but the squeak has gotten more predominant where, even in the city, it's squeaking now. And I've kind of ruled out brakes. There's tons of pad left, and the calipers seem to be moving freely and everything. So I'm kind of leaning to the axle and the CVs. Wanted to get an expert opinion on that and how difficult of a do-it-yourself job that is.
Is this a all-wheel drive CR-V or a front-wheel drive CR-V?
All-wheel.
Okay, just it brings another moving piece into play when you have the all-wheel drive. A couple new other pieces. The drive shafts on those can be very prone to squeaking, making noises when they've got a built-in hanger bearing. It's kind of an all-one assembly. And they can cause some problems, and it can resonate and sound like it's coming from other areas. But that's something I want to have you consider is inspecting that drive shaft and maybe thinking along that line a little bit closer since it's an all-wheel drive.
Yeah,
it is coming from the right front.
Okay, we've had some noise from axles on those before, up in the front. Not very often, though. It's not real common. It's for us, what we see in our own shop here with similar weather conditions, we hear wheel bearing issues with those where they can squeak more so than axles. The axles, usually they'll click when you turn one way or the other. You'll hear a click, 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 but not a squeak. But the wheel bearing, if that starts getting loose, either the bearing itself can make noise, or because the bearing leans back and forth when it starts to get loose, it can contact the edge of the rotor where the rust ridge is, right on the edge of it, and squeak. So what you might do to kind of test that out, if you get some like emery cloth and clean up the inside and outside edge of the rotor, just at the sharp point of it, right where the corner of the rotor is, if you're following me on the outside edge, clean that off there's no rust there, and then drive it and see if it goes away. If it does, you'll also want to make sure that the wheel doesn't have any play in it because it's loose, and do that with the whole tire assembly on, because if you just grab the rotor and try to move it, you won't have enough leverage to really get it to move enough. And then a wheel bearing would take care of that. But I've replaced a lot more wheel bearings for that issue than we have axles, so I kind of lean that direction.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. It has about 90,000 miles, just shy of 90,000.
That's very low mileage for 2008, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was my mother's car, so we put more miles on it than she has.
That's another thing, too. If it sat for a little bit, or it had less miles driven, and now it's got more. The rust on the edge of those brake rotors could really make that prevalent.
Okay. What about the vibration? It doesn't do it every time, but
well, that's why I originally
and the whole car.
That's why I originally asked about the drive shaft, because that is a real common issue for. But do you feel it just in the front, in the steering wheel, or do you feel it kind of through the whole vehicle?
The steering wheel shakes, and then the whole vehicle kind of vibrates too.
I wonder if it's got a tire that's got like a belt that's a little bit start out, or flat spot in the tire where you just get it a certain resonance at speed. Certain speeds you'll get it to resonate. You might try to just rotate the tires front to rear, and then see if the vibration moves. Does it move to the back when it was in the front before and in the steering wheel?
Oh, yeah.
Or if all four, that way you're going to get it. But it could be that's what's going on. I just had we did one the other day that the tires were getting bad. They gave the car away to somebody that needed one, and it was a pretty nice car, and the tires looked brand new, but we had to replace them because it sat so long, almost a year. It had some flat spots in the tire, and it drove pretty good, but every once in a while you'd get just to a certain speed and it would vibrate and the steering wheel would shake. We tried rotating it, didn't do any good. It just moved the shake to the rear and hopped up and down, so we had to put new tires on it. It's kind of a shame when you got nice tires and you got to replace them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was just kind of leaning towards that CV or axle joint or whatever. I was thinking back to my younger days with rear-wheel drives when I'd have a universal joint go out, and I was thinking, it kind of reminds me of that a little bit. So, but giving me a few things to look at, though.
That rear drive shaft sure can give you that same feeling with the U-joint going out in it. They will shake like that, and they'll squeak. So, but that wouldn't give you a noise in the right front. It would give you a noise in the rear. Thanks for the call, Bruce.
Well, yeah. All right. Well, thanks. I'll give you some things to look at.
You bet. Take care.
All right. Yep. Bye.
That vibration stuff, you don't want to let it go.
No.
Because if it's something that's going to fly apart and be dangerous, you don't want that to happen. And
you got to identify to make sure it's not an immediate safety concern, and then you can play a little more to feel, if you want to try some things on your own as a do-it-yourselfer. But the first thing you want to realize is I got to make sure this is safe if it's going to be doing stuff like that.
For sure. I mean, if you ever have a noise in your car, get it inspected, find out, because we've had too many people that have said, hey, I was just going on the road and something flew apart, and luckily I didn't crash into anything, and I stopped. And
you could have a squeak that would be a lower ball joint, and then all of a sudden it just pops, and then that wheel comes out, and you're one of them dead cars along the road with the wheel laying kind of back into the fender.
We used to see mufflers. Now we see vehicles with the wheel sitting out, which is pretty common. We'll be right back on the End of the Hood Show, 866-594-4150. We can get you on the air. The End of the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdiments.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
Welcome back to the End of the Hood Show. I am Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom. 866-594-4150, and you can get on under the hood, or get under the hood, on the hood. If you're on the hood, it'd be kind of hard to get the hood open, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I seen that we were at the Vikings game recently. I was going to go up and find their attorneys, but they have a they have a big screen flash when there's going to be a replay in the stadium, and they're going under the hood with some sponsor to go check out the replay.
That's all right, as long as it's not automotive.
Yeah, we're good. But hey, I thought maybe I'd go give him a hoodie. We'll find out who's in charge.
There you go. That sounds like a great idea. We're going to go to Jason in California, who has a 2018 Toyota Corolla. How you doing, Jason?
Pretty good. How are you guys?
Well, not bad. What's going on with the Corolla?
Well, it's a 2014 Corolla. I have called you guys in the past, and I got two questions. The first question is, can engine performance affect braking ability?
That's for sure. If you've got a problem with engine performance where you've got low vacuum in there, that can definitely cause a problem with the braking, because you wouldn't have enough brake assist Is that what you've got going on? You've got low brake assist, low brake pedal?
Well, when I push on the brake pedal, it does. I think there's supposed to be like a half-inch play.
Yeah.
To keep braking.
Pretty close.
And yeah, when I push on the brake as I'm driving, freeway or the streets, it goes down probably 2 inches, like not before I am braking, but it goes down quite a bit as I'm braking, and it doesn't feel like it's stopping the car well enough, even on the streets.
Sure.
But I feel like it should have a lot more play in the braking.
Yeah, it should stop quicker than that, and engine performance would not affect that, because if you lost your vacuum, it would actually be less play in there because it would be harder. You wouldn't have that assist. So it sounds like you've got something going on with the brakes themselves, not the engine performance for that. What was your other question you had?
When I pop the trunk lid open, the trunk light comes on the dash, but the light inside the trunk does not light up. And I replaced the bulb, I replaced the socket, and when I push when I close the trunk, open it, it's either the lever by the seat or I push the button on my remote to open it, and it opens it fine. So I'm trying to figure out why that light won't light up.
Yeah, on that, when that door ajar switch comes on, that door ajar switch has two components to it. One, which is tells the body control module, hey, turn the light on in the dash. We've got the trunk open, but then it has a higher current portion that activates the light. So it's possible that that's what's going on, is you've got a bad switch back there. We've seen a couple of them fail in other cars. I don't know specifically about this one, but we have had other Toyotas and things like that. I had a Toyota Avalon a couple months ago that had the same type of situation where the trunk switch failed. It had the ajar actually was on all the time, even though the light would go on and off when you would close it. So
that'd be fun.
Yeah, we had to swap it out, and then it worked. So I think that might be what's going on.
And that's the moving part that's the most likely to have a problem.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Does that help you out?
Yeah, so even though it could be the switch, you're saying, even though it still opens when I push the button on the remote?
Correct, because it's a two-part switch. One tells the dash, you've got an input coming into it to open it, of course, and then the switch has two parts to it. It tells the dash to light up that you've got the trunk ajar, and then a separate portion of it tells the light to come on. So I think that may be what's going on.
Okay.
All right, thanks for the call, Jason.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's so many of these electronics have more than one function to them. You just think a switch is a switch, but it's not actually a switch. It's got more going on to it than
it looks like
sometimes.
Like a simple little latch.
Yeah. And we're going to go right back to the phones, and we're going to talk to Glenn with a 2008 Chevy Impala. How are you doing, Glenn?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Well, we're good today. We're missing Chris, but that's all right. We'll stumble through without him. Hopefully he's listening at home if he's not too under the weather, over the whatever. How's your Impala?
Well, good. The reason I'm calling is just to inform you or make a comment. You had a gentleman a couple of weeks ago had a 2006 Impala, and he was having transmission issues where he'd stop at a stop sign, and he'd go to accelerate, and it wouldn't go, and then all of a sudden it would engage.
Yeah, we see that a lot on the GMs, on the 4T65s and things. What have you found?
Well, anyway, I had the same issue, Well, actually, this is my second 2008 Impala, and they both had that issue. And what it is the pressure sensor solenoid in the transmission.
That's one thing it can be.
Well, that's what what it was for me both times.
You got lucky.
Yeah, you gotta.
That's a cheaper fix.
I went to transmission shop, and he said if you catch it early, that's the key. He says if you keep driving it like that, then your transmission it'll start slipping.
Exactly.
And it just snowballs. So
yeah,
the key.
That solenoid in there, it's like a water valve. It opens up to give more pressure and less pressure. When you're accelerating hard, you should have more pressure so it doesn't slip. And then when you're accelerating lightly, it should have a little bit. But it's a good thing you caught yours early. If they do go long enough, what happens is it doesn't turn the pressure up high enough. It slips. So then, like when you're coming to that stop sign and you stop, it senses the slip and tries to turn the pressure up. So then you get that bang, which is awful. So that's good. That is really good information for. So if you're a listener and you've got one of those that's just starting to do that, make sure that you get that taken care of as soon as possible so you can avoid the expensive costs. How much did you pay to fix yours? Do you remember?
Well, I had a private guy
do it at home kind of thing?
He did it for $350 labor, and let's see, the solenoid, the gaskets, the pan gasket, and we did filter and oil at the same time was probably another $200. So I'd suppose $550.
And that's similar to some shops, like around this area would be. There's other cities where it'd be more, but yeah, that is a very fair price.
Yeah, because you have to pull off the side cover to get at it.
Compared to a whole transmission, that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, you got to actually drop the engine and transmission assembly partway down on the one side to get the cover off.
Yeah, we pull the cradle bolts out and lower it down in the driveway. That'd be really hard.
Yeah, it would be if you didn't have a properly equipped place.
A clutch on an old front-wheel drive Omni or something.
Yeah, he had a hoist, but anyway, he didn't drop it all the way down. He was able to loosen it up and take the one motor mount off on that side, the left side, and he was able to get the pan out that way.
All right. Well, that's good news. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, well, if it can save somebody a new transmission, that's great.
That's
for
what we're all about.
Yeah, we're trying to help hoodies. That's great.
Take care.
Yeah, but fix it the sooner the better.
All right. Yeah, that's good advice, because if you can save, anytime you can save money, that is very, very good advice. We got a little bit of news. We talk about the electrics, and we've had a lot of people call us and say, well, what about winter and this and that? Well, I talked with a Ford driver yesterday directly who had come into our shop and said, hey, I listen to the show every week, and you want to see my van? And I said, okay, tell me more. Well, it's electric. Oh, all right. Let me come check it out. So I got a van outside. Come check it out. And so I went out and
I'm not getting in. No.
Yeah. So I stuck my head in the door and checked it out. But so it was all electric. And I said, okay, you've got my attention now because I've got questions for you. This is a rear-wheel drive, full-size van.
And was this something they converted, or what was it?
No. It's a factory.
Oh, one of the
Ford
transit
electric. Yeah. So
okay.
I said, so how does it do in the winter for range? And he said, well, it gets about half the range when it's down really cold, like in the 20s and less. I said, okay, but how does that realistically affect you in a day of deliveries? He says it doesn't. He says, I don't put enough miles on that it would affect it. I'm just fine. I said, well, how about the heat? Do you stay warm? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, you stay really warm. But between the heater and the radio and the wipers on a really bad day, you can, you'll see your range cut in half, and it's giving you a warning. So that's something to think about. If you're ever planning on anything electric, you better get, the consumer report, so to speak. Watch YouTube videos, ask other people that own these vehicles, drive them, see what there is to see.
I think the first-hand accounts are definitely the best. That's for sure. I mean, we have the 3 electric school buses in Garrettson, and they're in service, and so far so good. We're getting into our cool season. We'll see what happens.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back on the Under the Hood Show. Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
Welcome back to the Under the Hood Show. I am Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom. You can call us at 866-594-4150, and it's time to give away a hoodie. Who's this week's winner, Russ?
Yeah, Russ, who wins the hoodie today?
I feel weird without Chris saying that. Brian Denver, congratulations from our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, UTI.edu, the place to go when you want automotive training. They also do CNC, computer-aided design and drafting, welding, marine mechanics. They've got tons of stuff. Check it out. If you are not sure of what kind of career you're looking for, I'd say check them out. If you're mechanically inclined at all and you like that kind of stuff, just go over there.
Great campus locations. Check it out.
Oh, yeah. They've even got some warm places.
They're going to look better.
Most of them are
They're going to
warm.
look better pretty soon. We've been pretty nice here so far where we're at, but it's going to change.
If you're up north, look at like Orlando and Houston. That'd be the way to go.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go right back to the phones, and we're going to talk to Brian, who has a 2019 Ford Fiesta. How you doing, Brian?
Morning, gentlemen. I'm good. We purchased, my son and I, he's 15, we purchased this repairable.
Okay.
It had minor damage. We've enjoyed fixing it up together. We're down to one last issue, and that is the airbag sensor is still on. I purchased a scanner. None of the bags were popped in it, right? It had minor front damage. I purchased the scanner. It gives me an 01 occupant classification system. My understanding, that is the passenger seat.
Mm-hmm.
There's a weight sensor in there, right?
Right.
I go to the live data, and I can see him getting in and getting out with the scan tool. I've reset it, but it automatically comes right back. What do you think the problem is?
I was just recently at a collision and industry conference in Las Vegas here. Well, it was during SEMA Apex Week. And that was one of the reasons I was there as a representative for the Automotive Recyclers Association. We want to make sure and be there to talk about quality recycled parts. If it comes up in the conversations, we're part of that world. We try to keep all of our partners in mind as we try to learn what they need to know and what we need to know. And one of the presenters that was there, that as I sat through the whole days of presentation, was just reiterating the challenges that the professional auto collision industry, which is who the Collision and Industry Conference represents, has as the cars have gotten more sophisticated. And he was talking about codes and scanning, and of course, the subject of supplemental restraint systems is always top of mind when they have those sort of things. And I remembered a car that we had. We had a Subaru, and just bless his heart, he's passed away, Brad Gullickson, but that he was working on, and for a customer that we had sold it to, and we kept having problems with this passenger occupant sensor. We bought used seats. We ended up buying a new seat, putting in there. We tried a lot of things, and finally the Subaru dealer with the new seat made it work. And it never ever made sense to me ever why a seat switch could go bad. But when I sat and listened to this presenter, he was chatting about the importance of the collision centers nowadays having a very good relationship with professional technicians. That's why, like a lot of the dealerships, they actually will have, there's a lot more work that goes on between the mechanical technicians and the collisions people, because they everything crosses so much. Mm-hmm. There's simple repairs that can require some fairly sophisticated diagnostics. But getting back to this seat on this particular, they gave an example of a seat. And I can't remember which manufacturer it was. It wasn't Subaru and it wasn't Ford. But the thing that kind of opened my eyes, and Russ is going to chime in on this and say, I get this, but they said it's not just good enough to have the right scanner. It's not just good enough to know how to read the codes. It's not just good enough to know how to follow the code setting program. You have to get to the manufacturer's recommended requirement process for doing it, which in the case of this one that they showed, it was a 16-step process to reset that seat light, and every step depended on the one before it. And that included what position the seat was in. Where's the seat back at? It had to be in a certain position for the programming to work. And there was a number of things that really, really surprised me that I would have not thought of. And so when I thought of that Subaru that we had that just really kicked our butt, it made me think, all right, was there people involved that maybe didn't quite know all those multi-step processes with the manufacturer? So that's something that I learned about just listening to those guys and the challenges they're having in the collision shops with this same problem. They think they're doing what they're supposed to do, but they're basically saying, did you follow all the steps?
Yeah, we had one
right. So
same way.
So you guys have a seat, right? I could grab that seat out of the you pull it lot, but I'm wondering, is that going to work because I don't have that scanning? I don't have the reprogramming tools, right?
Right, because you'll have to it'll be under functional tests, and it may be that there's nothing wrong with your seat. If your seat was not damaged in the collision and you can see that there's an occupant in it and out of it on the live data, our bet is that there's probably nothing wrong with that seat, and it may just be that it needs to be programmed a certain way. For instance, we had one that required that a 50-pound weight be set on the passenger seat.
There we go. It was that kind of stuff.
And it had to be, first we had to lean it all the way back, and then we had to have it all the way forward, and then it wanted a almost perfectly vertical position on the seat with it all the way down and all the way back, and then all the way forward. Then we had to hit the button, and it said, hit it here, hit it here, hit it here, and then it cleared, because we cleared that thing a dozen times and said, what is wrong with this? It's working. There's nothing wrong. And I think we had tried a different seat, and it turned out, like Shannon said, it had to be programming. So you may just ask the dealership, hey, I've got one. I've gone through all this. I'm seeing this. Is there a special procedure for this to program it? Because if there is, I can bring it in and have you guys program it. But if there's not, if they just say, well, it should just be able to clear it and it should be fine, then you probably don't want to, take it in and waste your money and do a little more. But sometimes YouTube is a good resource for that as well, too.
Well, I've YouTubed, a lot on this. And then also, I think the airbag system will still work. It sounds like it still will work.
If the light is off, then usually it'll work. When the light's on, typically it won't. But if there's a problem with that occupant classification sensor, in most cases we see with most models, it disables the entire system when that is failed, but not always. So you got to be careful. But typically when that light is on, it shuts the whole system down. But in recent years, they've been putting these things into zones. So if you have, say, side curtain airbags that have a failure in it, well, that's a forward collision. You still want the protection, so they leave those armed and active, so people can mistakenly see the light on the dash and think that the system is not operating when it really is. So you'd have to go into description and operation in the service manual, which is what we do often when we see something, and it'll say, if this code comes on, what are the steps that the module takes? And if one of the steps is disable the whole system, well, it's disabled. If it says turn light on and set code, then we know it's not disabled. So you'll want to find those things out. Of course, you don't know if the system's working or not when the light's on, because you don't know what else could be.
This example that they gave, I had to go to my phone and just look at my notes that I had taken at the conference that day. It was a 22 Sienna, and they were just talking about the importance of the initialization process, and that information is available in like I know when we have to do some subscriptions to the certain manufacturers, and you got to get in there and say, all right, it's not just the code, but what's the process here? So it because that happens before. We've had cars where No airbag deployments. No seatbelt pretensioners are screwed up. You can, the seatbelts seem like they're working and everything, but you got a light on, and then you start coding it, and it's something that was a pre-collision alert or different things that come up. So these systems are fairly finicky, even on a car. When you look at a 19 Fiesta, great car, but you wouldn't think that would be super complicated, but it's using late model technology, just like the latest Lincoln in that year.
Oh yeah. Does that help you out a little bit?
Yeah, I'm at a point where I got to buy a $2,000 scan tool or just take it in.
No.
We've saved money on the car already, so yeah.
I think
thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, I think what Russ said in this case, we love the do-it-yourselfers, and we love going on YouTube and see people that have figured out how to do things, how to make them work. And sometimes when I watch some of those YouTube things on safety-related things, they're like, we just want to get the light out. No, I want to make sure the system works right. And I want to make sure that it's correct and ready for the next collision if that were to happen that afternoon, because it could. And so it's very, very important.
All right, we're going right back to the phones. We're going to talk to Harv with a 2001 Buick Park Avenue. How you doing, Harv?
Pretty good. I just want to know what happened. The car is toast, but my boy was going to start it up, and the thing has 309,000 miles on it, and it was running great. My dad bought it new, but anyway, he turned the key, and that sucker, it just went bang. And it blew the top of the plastic, where it says Series 3800 plastic on top, Series 2. And,
blew the plenum right off of it.
Blew it right off, and it blew the oil cap where you fill it up with oil. Blew that off, and and then it burst into flames. What the devil happened?
If you have if you got a big gas buildup in there or a timing chain that is worn, typically we see it when a timing chain gets worn. The smaller engines, 2.2s, 2.4s, also did it. They would if the valve is partially open, you get a gas buildup in the intake, and the spark plug fires. Boom! The whole thing goes, and it blows the intake right off. I've had that happen to me a couple times on the 4-cylinder engines. We used to see it on the Grand Ams. All the time. They would have a timing chain that would jump, and you'd crank and crank and crank trying to find out why this thing was a no start, and it sounded pretty good, and all of a sudden they'd go bang, and you'd blow that intake off, and what did you do? I was like, I just tried to start the car.
I don't even think it made one revolution, with the starter.
Yeah.
It wasn't running.
It could have even been that it had a big gas buildup in the intake, and that one of the valves was hanging open a little bit because of carbon, and it just was enough that that flame crawled back in there.
Ignited the vapors.
It doesn't happen really often, but it does happen.
You could see that if you had an injector that was not quite sealing all the way and leaking a little bit.
Oh yeah,
it leaves some fuel residue. We've seen that. It's not an epidemic by any means, but as soon as you say the car was done and you want to know what happened with it, if you were watching the YouTube feed, you would have saw my arms go.
Boom!
I already predicted what you were going to say.
Yeah. Sorry for the explosion, Harv. Glad you're safe.
Yeah.
All right, take care.
Yeah, it was that. You bet.
Thanks. Oh man,
it's scary. We've had it happen once here where I was close by, and it is like a little surprise fireworks. That's for sure.
Between batteries blowing up and that, it'll scare you. I don't like either one. I like wearing safety glasses when I'm working with batteries because it's you just never know when you're going to get a spark and something's going to happen. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show today with just Russ and Shannon, but Chris will be back soon. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants.
Car feeling ill? Don't want to spread it to your wallet? Call the Motor Medics now for free advice.
866-594-4150. That's how you get on Under the Hood with Russ and Shannon, and most of the time, Chris. But not today. We're going to go right back to the phones, and we're going to talk to Colin? Colin. All right, we're going to talk to Colin with the 97 Ranger. I had to confirm that with producer Doug because we had another one lined up during the break, I thought, but that one's gone. So here we go. How you doing, Colin?
I'm doing good. I'm helping a friend ready his 97 Ranger 4-wheel drive for sale.
Okay.
And we got her all ready to go. And I wanted to test 4-wheel drive. So I flipped the switch from 2 high to 4 high. And none of the lights came on indicating 4-wheel drive. And
okay.
We drove around a little bit. And the 4 low light flashed a couple of times, which caused me to flip the switch around and shift into neutral and reverse. And the 4 low light would flash a couple of times every so often until I shut the car off and turned it back on. And then it went off for a while and started flashing again. Pretty random. So what's your take on that?
The feedback for that light comes through the transfer case motor, the electric shift motor. It sounds like it's probably a motor that's acting up by that description you just gave us. Could be a 4x4 module as well that controls that's going out, but I'm still leaning towards that transfer case shift motor. You might want to block the wheels so it's not moving anywhere, and then with it running and your foot on the brake, somebody in it, just give it a little tap on that transfer case motor with a dead blow hammer.
Chris would love to be able to help you with that.
That's why I said that. Yes. It's like just a hammer, but not real hard, but give it a little smack while somebody hits the button on the dash and tries to shift it from 2 to 4 back and forth. Not the low position, just the 2 high to 4 high, and see if that makes it switch. If it does, you might just be able to switch it back and forth several times. It's not made to be switched many times per minute, so that will actually burn up a motor. But if you could swap it about every 30 seconds to a minute or so and not damage it, but switch it back and forth several times, and then put it in neutral with your foot on the brake and hit the 4 low button, because that's how that one goes into 4 low and comes out of 4 low back to 4 high or 2 high, and just move it around a bunch. It happens a lot when these things sit and don't get switched, or it could be driven its whole life every day, hundreds of miles a day. But if it's never switched between the 4-wheel drive and 2-wheel drive settings, the motor just fails because of lack of use.
And there's other times you'll see where the seals will get bad in them and they'll get some moisture intrusion into them because they're exposed to the elements big time, and it can just cause it to have problems with some corrosion inside. That's the most common thing to look at. And while you're down there, you can inspect the wiring harness just to make sure that it doesn't have a cracked plug, or maybe the harnesses you notice that it's hanging. Maybe some mud or snow or ice got on it at one time and pulled down on it. So a good physical inspection on that is a great idea. And they're expensive little motors, but there's plenty of them available as recycled original equipment used. And so you can check like Car Dash Part and find one if you happen to need one, if it won't come out of it. And I would recommend just trying the 4 high, 2 high switch first, just in case this thing gets stuck, and you wouldn't want to get stuck in 4 low.
Right.
So make sure it's moving good between 4 high and 2 high before you try the 4 low, so you don't end up in stomper mode and you can't get out of it.
Yeah. Does that help you out?
I'll give it a look. The motor, is that fairly obvious? I mean, it looks like a little starter motor.
On the back of the transfer case, little electric.
It looks more like a windshield wiper motor.
Yep, right on the back of the transfer case.
Okay. All right. I will get under there and take a look, see what I can see, and give it a listen.
All right. Take care, Colin.
So I will. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Bye.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go right back to the phone before we have to catch up on our break here, and we're going to talk to Grant with a 2008 Chrysler Town and Country. How you doing, Grant?
Hey, guys. Can you hear me?
We sure can. What's up with the Town and Country?
Okay, I got an 08 Town and Country. I called you last week about it, where the ABS and traction control were acting up on it.
Yes.
And brought it in my mechanic, and of course, it wouldn't do it.
Huh.
So, the best we can figure, I can't remember exactly what he called it, but there's some sensor on the steering column where it registers when it's straight or at 180 degrees.
Steering angle sensor,
and it's registering at 160 degrees.
Oh. Yeah,
So we're thinking that needs to be replaced.
Definitely. If it can't be reset.
That's like an $800, $900 fix. I'm pretty sure most of that's labor. How difficult of a job is that to replace?
It's really not that bad. You just have to remove the steering column and then you have to reset it. But typically they won't go out that far where you can reset it. So I'm thinking that the part has probably failed and we've replaced it.
Is there a calibration to that, Russ?
There is, but you wouldn't need to calibrate it if there wasn't a collision or the steering taken apart. So for this to register that far out, it's got to be bad. But you could do it yourself if you watch the YouTube video on it. It is something you could do yourself. You could get a certified used steering column.
Oh, you could go to a self-service yard if there's one in the area and get a column for less than $50 and have the sensor right on it.
They don't fail that often, and I bet you could do it at home in your driveway yourself in probably, let's just say, 6 hours, because I'm going to give you plenty. I'm thinking in my mind 2 hours, and then you got to double that, and then if you've never done it, double it or third it again. I don't know.
Well,
let's just say 6 hours.
That's a fair. Just you're going to hit a jam somewhere and not know what to do.
It's a Saturday project.
Look at a YouTube video or two and
have to get a couple different sockets or something for it. But yeah, I think that's something you could probably do yourself, and that'd save you a ton of money. And then you just need to get it reset, unless it just happens to be dead on when you put it in, which I've had happen like 1 out of 5 times.
Is this something that commonly fails, Russ, on that model?
Not super common, but it does fail enough. We've put a few of them on.
Because you sure want to identify that's it before you go to all the work.
Yep. I've put a few on that, but that sensor is definitely going bad. So if that's not giving you this problem, it will give you other problems.
So it didn't do the problem when it did not do the problem when they were there, when you were there. But then they
no, of course not.
But then when he was looking at the data, he saw that it was that far out of range. It's amazing that wouldn't give a code right away, Russ.
It should, but it's not today. So. All right. Does that help you out a little bit?
Second question for you.
Okay.
Well, I got one more quick question. I got an 04 Town and Country Chrysler. I'm a fan of these vans.
Okay.
And it is shot. So I was planning on taking it up there tomorrow afternoon. Do I take it over to the U-Pullet yard, or do I take it over to the main office to sell it?
Just for people that want to, on the local show here, that want to sell us vehicles, just call our normal phone number and talk to the buyer. Just make the choice for sell your own vehicle, and they'll make a plan with you on how to do that.
Yep. That's it.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. Take care.
Have a good day.
All right.
Well, you know what, Russ? I want to give thanks to all of us on the show here, and thanks to our hoodies. We've got Thanksgiving coming up here. One of our next shows will be a best of show, because it'll be Thanksgiving when we record live. So just want to be thankful. You never know what the days are going to bring you. We've had a lot of just around us lately. It seems like a lot of people that have just been in our orbit for a long time that are no longer there, or they're having some serious health struggles, and you can lose track of people. And just make sure you give thanks for the people that are around you.
Give thanks now while they're still around.
Yeah.
Don't forget, because once they're gone, you can't.
Yeah, Russ and I just realized that we missed a pretty cool person in our lives by a year that has been
I'll
passed
admit
away.
It. Pat Devaney. He was a great guy and got us a few radio stations over the years, and I was communicating over Facebook, and life got busy and realized, hey, where's his messages? And then went, oh my gosh. And Facebook doesn't show you everything like they used to. So
yeah,
unfortunately, we miss out.
Give thanks for the people around you on Thanksgiving. That's for sure.
Take care, everybody. Under the Hood Show was brought to you by Sturdivants.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. I am Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom.
Welcome, Hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
Chris is on leave today. Special assignment in his house.
He's hanging out.
Yeah. He's
close to facilities.
Hanging out. Hanging out. Special assignment. There you go. All right. 866-594-4150. We're going to jump right into the phones right away, and we're going to talk to Brian, who has a 2018 Ram 3/4-ton truck. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
The center screen that shows the display for everything
Oh, yeah.
is like a roulette machine. Flashes from screen to screen to screen.
Ooh.
And the boss ain't happy.
So it's not like just delaminated like sometimes they'll do where the screen starts splitting and looks funky and weird. The touch
It's starting to do that, but now today when she got into it, it goes to like, do you want to set the clock? And she hits no. And then it just starts scrolling to the radio. Then it goes to the settings. Then it goes back. Do you want to set the clock? And
my hunch is that the touch screen itself, since it was showing some of that, I guess delamination, I'm not sure if it's the right word, but it's almost like separation that happens inside them. Eventually they'll start to short. You know, the
digitizer.
Yeah, to make it think that it's being touched when it's not being touched, and it can start doing all kinds of funky stuff. I just had a conversation with one of our sales reps, Scott. He's a busy guy. He talks to a lot of different repair facilities, just like I did when I worked the counter, and you learn a lot. And he just was saying that there's a number of these that are having challenges, and we should be watching for them that are bad, because he's found someone that he could send them to and put a new screen on them and be able to get them fixed.
There's a couple that we can do, like some Cadillacs and stuff we've done successfully and had good luck rebuilding screens.
Yeah, rebuilding them or sending them away. But that would be my first hunch if the screen was showing physical problems before with some, I guess I'd call it separation, delamination, like a fuzzy line across it almost that happens.
well, it gets up on the top and it's starting to roll down both sides. It's like, it's like a screensaver's on there and it's peeling off is what it looks like. It's a kind of a grayer up there.
Yep.
That's a hunch based on some recent experience. But those units, if you take and go to the dealer and talk to the manufacturer's pricing, is crazy. They're very expensive. We sell used ones that are good, if it's the one I'm thinking of in that range, for anywhere between $500 to $800, depending on where the market is at. And then high supply and demand, of course, rules everything, how many are available and that sort of stuff. But I know that some of the ones we've been sending in to get redone have been similar pricing after they're done, if that's the case. But it's just, I'm thinking that's what it is. I mean, Russ, is there anything else that really would?
I'm leaning that way since it's got that delamination up in the corner going on as well already.
I'm not even sure if that's the right term, but the screen just starts looking funky. It doesn't look right, and you can use you can use wrong chemicals on those things, and you can make them not good on the outside. But this is kind of something that seems like it's a little more below the surface.
Yeah, that's
when you look
definitely
at it.
inside. Does that help you out?
It's inside. Yep. And where's your shop at, Russ? Is this something you would like to look at?
Yeah, we can look at those. If anybody's in the area up north here in the Garrettson, South Dakota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota area, we're here. You can go to our website, and there we've got links there to our shops. Appreciate it.
You're right in town. Right in the town.
Yeah, we're right in town. We have a lot of listeners that have come out that have taken advantage of our services, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate
You bet.
it.
See you, Brian. All right, we're going to jump right back in real quick. We're going to, let me see. Let's go to Jack in New Jersey, who's got a 1968 Mustang. My favorite color. How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Not bad at all. What's up with the Mustang?
Well, I have it's a 68 Mustang, and it's drums all around. And I put it up on a lift in my garage, and I had driven it around the block a couple of times, and I noticed that I had some rattling. So I put it up on the lift, and I put it in drive to see if I can, see, what was rattling. When I went to, so I put my foot on the brake, went to put it in park, rear wheels are still spinning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, okay, it's an old vehicle, it's 68. So I ended up changing the master cylinder. I bench bled the master cylinder, so put it back together, put it up on the lift, put it in drive, go to hit the brakes, and the rear wheels are still spinning.
Not getting fluid pressure back there. That's
kind of where I'm at. So I tried to bleed the brakes, nothing, and I'm thinking, what could it be? I'm lost.
If you've got a good bench bleed on that master cylinder, you've got one of two things going on. Either somebody has jacked up the car in the back and crushed the rear line, which can happen. I've seen that before on that car more than once. But more than likely, it is that at some point it lost brake pressure. It may have sat for a few years, and when it did, the brake proportioning valve, which is downstream of that master cylinder, got wedged one direction. When it loses pressure on one side, it applies all its pressure to the other side. It's an emergency safety feature. So it's got a pin that slides back and forth, a little rod, and as it slides internally, it's not external, it blocks off the flow to the rear if it had no pressure. If it loses it in the front, it blocks off the front, and then the fluid goes the other way. Not very easy to get to on a 68 Mustang. So what you could try would be to leave the back closed, open up the front bleeder screws, both of them, and stomp on the brake pedal quickly and firmly, just a few times, just doot, 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 and hit it. And hopefully that will jar that lever the other direction. At that point, you're going to close those front bleeders again, open up the rear now, and push on the pedal just a little bit, like halfway down, but with your hand. So you're not pushing it real hard, just very slowly but steadily, and then see if you get any fluid out of the back. Repeat that procedure maybe 5 or 6 times. At some point, it's not going to see the pressure in the front, so it's going to allow that valve to float to the back. If the valve is really stuck because of some carbon and goo built up in the brake system, you're going to have to replace it, and it's going to take you, I bet it's going to take you 3 hours or so maybe to get in there and get it changed, depending on which engine you have in the car. I had one I switched out from drum brakes to disc brakes in the rear. I put a Lincoln Versailles rear end in it, and when I switched out all that, I ended up taking out that proportioning valve, and I remember it took me all day to switch the lines because I switched them all out back there. I probably didn't need to, but overdoing is always the best way, right? But I think that's what's happening, Jack, is that your brake proportioning valve is stuck.
Is there, Russ, is there a situation where the car, well, we got to take a break here, but just make sure, though, that the rear brakes are in good operating condition, the wheel cylinders, that they're adjusted right.
But try that proportioning valve for the fluid. Does that help you out, Jack?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care. It's always good when we've got a little something to help them with. Under the Hood, we'll be right back in just a moment. Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivant's. 866-594-4150. That's how you get Under the Hood with Russ and Shannon today. We've got callers lined up, so what we're going to do is we're just going to jump right back in, and we're going to start with Mike, who has a 2018 Silverado. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for everything that you do to share your knowledge. We really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. Thank you.
What's going on with the Silverado?
It sounds like it's on the front left side. And it as you're driving down the road, you kind of hear a little whoom, 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 whoom.
Oh, yeah.
At first I thought, well, it's a tire. So I rotated the tires. Still there. So then I thought, maybe I got a warped brake rotor. had the rotors turned, put new pads in, and I still hear this. And it's not obnoxiously loud, but it's loud enough to bug the heck out of me.
Well, it'll make you concerned, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my next step going inward would be a wheel bearing. Is this something that is common on these things? It's only got like 60,000 miles on it.
Which motor do you have?
It's a 5.3.
And which transmission do you have? 6-speed
I
automatic or
can't
8?
answer that.
6-speed automatic or 8-speed automatic?
Yes, it's the 6-speed.
Does it seem like, would it feel like if you're driving over a rumble strip?
No, it's just, I would have sworn there was something in a tire. It's just like you hear it once every revolution.
Do you find it at certain RPMs or certain speeds, or is it there all the time?
Well, of course, the faster you go, it speeds up, right? So it's just irritating. I notice it mostly when I'm going slow, and you can hear it, womp, womp, womp. It's like once every revolution of the wheel,
That's a wheel bearing. That's what I'm leaning toward. I hear that often, and we replace a number of them on the Silverados. And what's happening is that the bearings, there's a bunch of balls on the inside and outside of those bearings, and as they move and travel through there, imagine you've got, probably 12 of these little bearings rolling around on that shaft as it's turning. The outside hub is turning on the inside on the race, and as it's turning, if you stopped all the ball bearings, because that noise doesn't line up with your speed. If you're going along at 50, or let's say 45 miles an hour, you can picture in your mind, okay, that wheel is going, it's just zipping along. It's not going vroom, vroom,
right.
vroom. Well, the bearings, they've worn out. They've got flat spots on them. The grease is getting heavy, and maybe some water in there. The bearings are all stuck together, and as the thing's turning on the race, it's just dragging. The bearings aren't turning. The speed of the bearings is vroom, 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 each revolution, not the same speed as the wheel. So they're dragging, and every once in a while they get enough friction and heat, and they make a loop, and then they sit there, and then they vroom, and make another loop. And I've had some of these where we've taken them off the vehicle and they've fallen apart, and we can see that they've got like a groove worn in one spot on the bearing all the way around. So I really think that replacing that is going to fix it. Now, this is the type of bearing that if you take the wheel off and you turn it, you won't feel a rough spot. You feel a rough spot in a bearing when it's like a roller skate. The old roller skates, you got to be old enough to know what a metal roller skate was or a metal skateboard wheel. And I'm right at that edge where we had
and nostalgic enough that you'd look it up.
There was old ones laying around that in our neighborhood that were like, what's that? Oh, that's metal. Oh, that's hard to ride. But they make that roaring kind of sound like a tire that's worn out, like a heavy mud tire. So it would, that's why you get that noise, and that you can feel as you turn, but this you wouldn't feel. So if you get that kind of noise and the axle looks good, it's almost always a bearing, but I'm leaning towards the bearing for sure.
Okay. Well, it's not super expensive. It's something that I can easily do, and I think that is my next step. And when I did have the thing off the ground, when I had the rotors turned, turning the hub, you really couldn't feel it, but there's no load on it then. So
correct.
Now, the thing that I was leaning at earlier in the call I thought maybe was where you're going. They have a problem with on that era of truck where the factory transmission fluid was not compatible with the assembly lube that they used.
Right.
And it caused some problems within the torque converter. And it would make the thing just make a voom, voom, voom at certain RPMs, and the tach would flare just like 100 RPMs. Yep. And it makes a noise that I had it in my truck, and I was like, what is this? And then I finally was watching, and I saw the tach moving at the same time. I'm like, oh, I know what this is. And so there is a flushing process, and then a different fluid they put in it that takes care of it most of the time, and did on mine. But that's what I was leaning to towards when you first said it. But no, your symptoms sounded different than that.
That help you out, Mike?
It does, and I am old enough to remember steel roller skates. I appreciate your input, gentlemen.
There you go. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go right back to the phones, and we're going to talk to 2009 CC with a 2009 Ram 1500. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
We're pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. Say, I've got a 2009 Dodge Ram 1500, and earlier this summer, I noticed while I was driving it, when it was under load or under throttle going up a hill or something, it would develop a vibration. As soon as you let off the gas, it'd go away. My first thought was obviously U-joint or anything like that. I checked those. They were good. It did throw a code. I hooked it up to the scanner where I work at, and it was the MDS solenoids. So I went and replaced those, and it got better, but it didn't go away. It did. I'm able to drive it full power now, and it still gets the vibration in it, whereas before I replaced the solenoids, I didn't have full power. But now it comes up cylinder 5 misfire, so I replaced the spark plugs, and I've actually swapped the coil pack out 2 different cylinders. They're interchangeable, and it always comes back cylinder 5. I did a compression test, and I have 125 PSI on that cylinder. And then while it was running, I unplugged each injector, including that one at a time, and you could definitely notice a change in the pickup when I do that, telling me the injectors are working. So I guess I'm curious on what more I could check for that cylinder 5 misfire.
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to tell you something that you may not want to hear, but this is how you find out before you get too far. Pull the valve cover off that driver's side, which is not going to take very long, and start the engine up, and then watch the rockers. And if you see that the rocker arms are not moving completely on cylinder number 5, which is what I'm guessing you're going to see, that's your problem. So what happens is at the lower RPM, the valves are open enough to get fuel in and fire the engine so you don't get a misfire at idle. But when you get it up off of idle, it can't flow enough air, and it can't bring enough air and fuel into the cylinder, so it won't run properly, and it does have the miss. And that comes from a worn cam and lifter or a broken lifter. We see it quite often, and when these come in with a dead engine for that, that's what we see. We pull the valve cover off. If I've got one that's got a misfire there, I'm going to do a quick check, and I'm going to check fuel and spark, and I might check compression on that cylinder. More than likely I'm going to, and then one next to it to see, because if I got 125 on one and 175 on the other, I got a problem. But that's low. 125 is definitely low on that cylinder. So pull the valve cover off. It's probably going to take you half hour to get it off of there, and then fire it up and look at it and watch. And if you see that one's not moving, then you got to dig in deeper and see, well, it's worn, camshaft, lifter, what's going on. Sometimes a cam and lifter will fix it. A set of lifters in a cam, but other times you got to put an engine in it if it's all full of metal.
He doesn't want to hear that.
Yeah, if it's just starting though, and it's broken lifters, you could put a cam and lifters in it and fix it before it gets too clogged. So, does that help you out a little bit and give you a little
scares
guidance
him, Russ? You just scared him, is what you did.
I know, but you don't want to keep driving it that way.
Right. Unfortunately, yeah, you did help me out, but it wasn't what I wanted to hear. But yeah, it gives me someplace else to look.
Well, sure. and you've done your analysis that you've done was very. You've covered a lot of the bases that we would normally people to walk through before we get to that point. So that's kind of exited the interstate pretty quick into a bad spot on that one. With those coils switching around, you probably were switching wire, boots on there too to make sure there wasn't misfiring on the boot, but. You gotta find out that cylinder health, or else you're gonna chase and spend money.
All right. Well,
okay.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Oh man, we see so many of those that when there is first we get those solenoid codes because the engine computer doesn't think that it's activating like it's supposed to, and then you get a misfire and you do some diagnosis. I'm sure this thing probably had a problem with the solenoids because he replaced them and the code's gone away. But now that it's got a misfire off idle, that's a dead giveaway when they idle good, but when you start accelerating, then they start to miss. And when I mean accelerating, just even in the bay, you're sitting there with it in park or neutral and you give it some gas and all of a sudden it starts to starts to miss and pop and bang on you, that's a bad thing.
And it's another cautionary tale that just because you see a code for a component or system, don't run out and buy one.
Right.
Think it through a little bit. Do some more research of what else could cause that code in that unit.
You got all those other ones there for free. You can swap back and forth and see what's going on. 866-594-4150. Shannon and I are going to take a quick break. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants. Welcome back to the Under the Hood Show. I'm Russ Evans along with Shannon Nordstrom. 866-594-4150. Let's give away another hoodie.
It's hoodie time.
It is. This hour's winner is Tim Rick. Congratulations from all of us here under the hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, UTI.edu. Now let's go right back to the phones, and we're going to talk with Carolyn, who has a 2019 Ford Escape. How are you doing, Carolyn?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Not bad. Well,
I want to say I love my Escape. Okay, it does amazing things. No, it does amazing things, and it's an EcoBoost.
Sure.
And I bought it used. It was somebody had it. It was a lease, but it didn't have that many miles on it. It was this awesome car, but edge was. But what it does like I can be sitting there. I even had my cell phone on my lap. And when I started, or after I started, sometimes, at times, I get a pop, like a pop noise. Like I was like, like I was touching something, and I'm not saying I got shocked, but I'm like, what the heck? And so I thought, well, maybe, I asked my serviceman, I said, well, maybe, he goes, well, that normally doesn't happen. He's never heard of that. And so I thought, well, maybe it's my water bottles, that'll make that poppy noise. But then again, it happened again not that long ago, and I didn't have a water bottle around. So I just I'll start it off after I start it off after a little while, it'll do that. Like I don't even have my cell phone on my lap because I was worried about plugging it in at times.
Mm-hmm.
So because I didn't know what that was or what was causing it. And I'm like, where I was getting I don't say a shock, you know what I mean? Like a slight. I don't know. I just know. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, where
Does it do it more than once or just the once?
It does it off and on. It's like when I don't even expect it. Like I said, I tried to eliminate things I thought, oh, Carolyn, maybe it's just something, it's your water bottle, whatever. So I left it at that. But then when I put I didn't even have my water bottle in sight. I made sure I didn't have my, my phone on my lap. I was kind of worried for a little bit while there. And I'm like, well, let me just leave it. At one point, in the beginning, I wasn't even using my cell. Because I was worried, like I just say a light, slight, felt the light, I don't want to say if it was shocking me, but it was a pop, a light, where I dropped my phone the first time it did that. I guess it scared me. You know what I mean? I wasn't sure what it was doing.
The water bottle idea was a good idea because we had a caller or two call in over the years that have had water bottles that inside the cars would contract with temperature changes and pop, and they would set off security systems.
Yeah, under the seats and wherever they are.
It wouldn't set up a security system, but what I did is to eliminate things. I'm like, well, let me just, maybe it's just me thinking that, it's this. And then I thought, what's the water bottle? So I put the water bottle, kept it out, and then it'll do that every once in a while. So
you haven't been randomly rubbing balloons on your head when you get in the car or anything before that, or wearing big fuzzy sweaters, or
No, I try not to do that unless I'm going somewhere for Halloween. But what my serviceman did say, he says, Carolyn, sometimes when you go into the car and you're like with your, I don't know, what do you get, like an electric thing with your feet, with your shoes?
Static.
Yeah, static. That's what it is, static. And I said, well, okay, that could be it. But I mean, it's come back every once in a while. I could just be sitting there and I'll hear that pop. Like I go to turn on my radio, whatever, and I don't really get all of a sudden I hear this pop, and I'm like, what the heck?
It could
I don't
be
know.
static, and that's getting into when you touch something like the radio or the dash that the radio picks up, so it's coming through a speaker. You're just going to have to keep an ear out for it and see what you think. But when you said this had, how many miles are on this now?
Oh, it's like 40,000. It doesn't have that many.
Okay.
miles.
Something to watch. If you've got that little turbo engine in here, they've got a timing belt. And on these, they say, oh, you can get 100,000 miles. Don't worry about it. You're fine. But we've put in more than a dozen of these engines in this model Escape, and they all have one thing in common. They all failed only because the timing belt went out, and they all had about 90,000 miles on it. We had another one for a lady right in our town who was just lucky enough that came in and says, I'm hearing a weird noise. What is it? And I said, well, you've got two problems going on. I see the water pump is flopping around, so that's grinding. That's the noise you're hearing. But I'm also hearing a slapping sound, and that was the timing belt hitting the cover. And when we got the cover off, when we put the water pump on it, which is partially external, the belt was coming apart, and that made her repair much cheaper because she ended up putting a belt on it and a water pump for about probably 20% of what it would have been to put an engine in it. So make sure you keep an eye on that.
One thing, Russ, that I'm not happy with what you just did for Carolyn, because Carolyn is worried about a small snapping noise in her car,
and we're going to
now you just gave her another worry.
Don't worry.
Was the plan to give her a worry that'd be big enough she'd forget about the snapping?
Oh, that would work, wouldn't it?
No.
let me tell you this: I have AAA, right, and I also have great servicemen in Rio Grande where I live, but also I have a 100,000-mile warranty.
Well, exactly. That's good. But now, one thing you might try, if it is a static issue, is just before you get into the car, just try just make it a point to lay your hand, on the roof, or just kind of ground
Touch
yourself
the car first
before you actually get into the car, because the handles themselves are plastic on the door handles.
Right.
And if you open it up gently and get in, your first release of static electricity, if it could be something like that, might be when you're getting in the car or when you move a certain way. That's a thought.
Or I'm just full of, what do you call it? I have that electrical.
You seem to have a lot of energy. You could be full of electricity.
When you get in and sit down, the first thing you want to do, if you've got a passenger, you want to reach over and touch their ear when they're not paying attention, and then see if the noise goes away.
Idea, but
if the noise is coming through the speaker, if you could
it's not coming through the speaker. It's just a popping noise. Like I could be sitting there and I go to start the car. After I start the car or whatever, like I said, I had my cell phone and I heard this popping, like a popping noise, and I thought, I don't want to say it actually felt like a little charge or whatever. So I was like, I dropped my phone, and then I let it go, and I thought, well, Carol, maybe you shouldn't be using this in the car because it's not always safe. So then I was like, okay. Then another time I went and turned on my radio or whatever, and then I didn't hear it through the speaker, but I heard another, wasn't there, just I heard another pop, and I'm like, okay, what's that? Is it me or is it, but my water bottle wasn't there because that's what I chalked it up to.
Well, thanks for calling us. This is going to be a hard one to solve probably, but
yeah, it might be just my feet. When I get in the car, like you said, it's causing that friction. That's what he said too. It's probably that. So
get some.
I appreciate you guys calling me.
Get some all-weather floor mats that are made out of rubber instead of cloth ones if you have, and try that once.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, that'll be probably much helpful, so I won't hear that anymore.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Oh, man, that's nuts. That static electricity is...
If that's what it is, it's a hard one to track down, but sometimes the cars, they come with a nice carpet floor mat, and if the air is dry and you slide in, depending on what you're wearing, polyester pants or whatever, and you can create quite a snap.
Well, you can damage electronics too that way, so you got to be careful. All right, we're going right back to the phone. We're going to talk to Don with a 2004 Neon. How you doing, Don?
Good. How are you guys?
We're well. We miss Chris, but we're well.
Beautiful day.
It sure is. What's up with that Neon?
So my Neon's got got around 125,000 miles on it.
Okay.
And now that the temps are dropping down like 40 degrees or lower, it's developed a transmission issue where I'll back out of the driveway, go to put it in drive, and it'll either won't move or it'll go away like a block, and then it'll pop into neutral. And then if you shift it back into park, back to drive, sometimes it'll go the first time, sometimes you have to do it a couple times. But once you get going, it seems to be fine. Any ideas?
Yeah, we've got a 2004 Neon that does the same thing. We make sure on the cold days we start it up and run it until it's good and warm, like operating temperature, before we let it go out. Otherwise, we're worried that it could cause damage to those clutches, which it will. We tried flushing that transmission when it first started doing this, and we put a cleaner in it. We used the Justice Brothers cleaner, drove it for about 15 minutes, shifting up and down through all the gears, and then flushed it and put a conditioner in it. And it took care of the problem for a couple years, and now it's come back. It's just an age thing as other things are wearing in there. But a flush like that, where you run a cleaner through it and make sure it goes through all those gears and operates everything and cleans it up real well, and then putting a conditioner in it to condition the seals in it and new fluid, that may fix your problem. The only other is to rebuild the thing, because your valve body and things are starting to hang up. But
that, and you can get, the joke used to always be called morning sickness with the transmission. When they're cold, the seals that are between the different clutch packs and stuff are more brittle, and they'll pass fluid between areas that it isn't supposed to when it's cold. And then once it warms up, that stuff gets more soft and pliable, and then it works. That's kind of what's happening inside of there when this type of thing happens. You're going to want to inspect first just to make sure that it's mechanically, physically doing all the stuff that it's supposed to do. But that is what'll happen sometimes, and that's where the cleaner, if it's got a conditioner in it too, can help kind of
does it hurt?
Yeah, make those seals feel a little bit better inside, and sometimes that'll give them a little more life. But otherwise, you just got to baby it a little bit, and it can last that way a long time too.
Mm-hmm.
If it's never been flushed before, does it cause issues to flush them at this age? Or
only if the fluid is very dark. If the color of it is almost black because it's so burnt, then we wouldn't flush it, because it'll just usually takes away the friction material and it's gone. But if it's still just brownish color, reddish brown, you should be fine to put the cleaner in it and flush it.
Do you think it could possibly be anything with the linkage on it, or
no? Not at all. When it does it just
most
cold,
likely not.
Yeah, just cold. It's something hanging up in the valve body.
That's why I said you want to have somebody probably at a transmission shop physically just do an inspection on it, just to make sure that the linkage is right, the the communication with the range switch is correct. Everything is jiving like it's supposed to, just to make sure. But most likely culprit is just internals that are worn, and the cold weather affects them quickly.
Does that help you out?
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Take care, Don. Yeah, a lot of times maintenance is what it's all about. If you don't do it, you're going to have a problem. But if you do take care of it, you can extend the life. And be careful, even if you've got a warranty, read the fine print, because a lot of times they'll spell out, if you didn't do the maintenance, no warranty.
Do you think of Carolyn, if she was waiting for that warranty and then it says, no, you need to change the timing belt, you don't get any warranty.
Belts aren't covered under warranty.
She might be in for a surprise, so keep that in mind.
866-594-4150. The End of the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivant's.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
Going under the hood. We're under the hood now. 866-594-4150. And we've got another caller on the line we're going to go to right now. We're going to talk to Lester in Mississippi with a 1989 Dodge Raider. Boy, it's been a long time since we've even thought about that. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you calling.
You bet. What's up with that thing?
Well, about 7 or 8 years ago, I guess, one of my little 50-year-old grandson's ball game, and things started knocking. and I was told it threw a rod.
Okay.
And it has been sitting up since then. I bought it in '89, brand new. Of course, I'm sure you know that Mitsubishi made the Dodge Raider that year, but it was labeled by Dodge, I think, just for that particular year, and I think it was rated #1 little four-wheel drive at that particular time. Cool, neat vehicle, but my mechanic does not, and I think he's very respected, knows what he's doing. I'm sure he does. Says he cannot find a motor part. And I've also been advised not to even consider trying to fix it because Mitsubishi is our business, and I would have trouble getting parts in the future if anything else happens. So what I want to know is there any way to get it fixed, and would you recommend that with them being out of business?
Well, they're still selling a lot of parts overseas for these older ones. These trucks, they use that engine in a lot of stuff in the overseas vehicles, so I don't think you'd have a problem getting parts if you know where to look for them. And I wouldn't know where to look right offhand, but I could do some digging and find out. So I know it can be done. If you look on YouTube at some of the people that have these vehicles, a lot of times they'll drop in the comments sources that they've had to get these parts. You could pick up a used engine for this on Car Dash Part. I'm sure they're going to have at least a few out there.
And that'd be a tough one, but there'd be some out there, I bet, and you'd have to just talk individually with the recyclers that have them
like.
to see what they know about them.
They sold a lot of them, and they were popular in the years that they had them there. But you can get, I think you're going to be able to find the parts you need if you wanted to rebuild this thing.
The first thing would be just a quick state of health of the rest of the vehicle, and it sounds like if you bought it new, and if you're in the South and this thing is clean and not rusty, then you might say, you know what, this is worth digging into. Mm-hmm. And then the next step would be to find out, all right, I've got this rod knocking noise. How bad is it? You know, let's analyze that. It might even be such a thing where you got to take the motor out anyway. You might have somebody just break it down and see how bad it is. Maybe they'll find it's just, for whatever reason, one rod bearing went out and it hasn't turned into the metal too bad, or maybe they'll find maybe it's something that's just not that bad.
Turn the crank, put some bearings in it.
Yeah, and that's something that a machine shop could do, and that's where you come into finding the parts. If they know the engine family, is it a 2.6 Mitsubishi motor in there or something like that probably? If they know the engine family and the engine type, that was built worldwide, like Russ said. And there is going to be parts somewhere for that. It's just a matter of figuring out what to look up. You might not be looking up a Dodge Raider. You might be looking up a Mitsubishi Hornet in whatever country it was in, and they might be able to find it. But most likely you're going to find it by looking up engine family.
Yep.
And you'll be able to find the pieces and maybe just fix the one you have. How many miles were on it when it died?
About 120. I bought it for 4 years. I drove it, had about 50,000 miles on it, and I have 4 kids, and I was just using it for an auxiliary vehicle.
Yeah, so that's not very high miles really for the rest of the motor if it happened to be just one thing wrong with it. And the other thing that you might come into play with is you might find that you can find another high mileage motor that somebody has on Car Dash Part, that they have a run video of it, or they can actually let you hear it run on a video. I know we do that with a lot of our stuff. That's getting pretty old to be on a full service auto recycler that's going to list that for inventory. But if you find one, maybe you could buy one with higher mileage that's not knocking, and then have your mechanic just freshen it up with bearings and stuff like that. Put a new timing belt in it, or if it's gears or belt. I think that was a belt on that one. That would be important regardless. But I think there's ways to get this fixed. I mean, I just came back from Apex and SEMA here a month ago, and what you see out there for people are starting to restore old Chevy Loves and Volkswagen Bugs and Beetles and buses and stuff that it hasn't been made for years and years and years. They're finding them parts somewhere, and there's people out there to help them. And so I know you can get this fixed. It's just a matter of how much energy, effort, and in the end, dollars you want to spend on it.
What would you estimate in dollars? What would you think would be some kind of figure to get it back going?
Well, if you wanted somebody, if you're going to, you've got to almost know somebody that has got I would say an independent repair shop or a smaller repair shop or an at-home repair shop. Because if you brought it into a dealer and said, I wanted to fix this, it's just not feasible. That doesn't match their business model, what they need to do. But you need to find that, ask at the parts store, and find out, hey, who's somebody that does fixing? And tell them what you have, and they might be able to refer you to somebody. And I'll tell you this, if you can find the right person that does things privately, and they would pull that motor in and out and inspect it for $500 or less, something like that, that's not a good estimate normally, but that does exist out there all the time. If you can find the right people, they just love doing this kind of stuff. Then the pieces inside probably aren't that expensive once you figure out where to get them. You might find a bearing kit or a rebuild kit for $180 or $250 or something like that. If you can find the right engine family and find somebody who's still got some old stock sitting on the shelf somewhere. So you could probably get this done affordable, but it's going to take some mining and digging. It's not going to happen just by bringing up one phone number probably.
For sure. Yeah, and like Shannon said, you can get a core. A lot of times you can get a core, those things would get overheated and they had a bad head or something like that on it. So if you talk to the guys on Car Dash Part and say, hey, what do you got? And they're like, well, this one came in with a bad head gasket, but if it didn't have coolant in the oil, that means you'd have a good, very likely a good crank. So you got to
get creative. It can be done. You got to think outside the proverbial box.
Yeah. So we think you can get her going again.
That would be awesome. It's such a neat little vehicle, and I was hoping that I was told several years ago that a guy told me he could put a motor in it for around $4,000. But then my mechanic who builds race cars and everything said that it would have to be the Mitsubishi motor for it to work. And where did you say that I might be able to find the motor for?
It's a website out there on the internet. It's one of our partners. We have our parts listed on there and thousands of others. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of parts coast to coast. Car-Part is what you look up, car-part.com. And you can look up by your make, model, by region, and find out people that have parts listed for sale in recycling centers, salvage yards, junkyards, whatever you want to call it. I don't ever like using the word junkyard. And find out who has them. And then it's just a direct call between you and them to find out what they have and what they're selling. And if they can tell you a bit of a story about it, that might be just fine, because that's getting old. I mean, you're not gonna find too often where there's just something that just got wrecked that's only got 50,000 miles on it. You're gonna have to do some digging, turn over a few stones.
Now the truck, it had 60,000 on it when I quit driving. It's got 120,000 on it now.
Yep, there you go.
You're getting up there. Thanks for the call, Lester. Take care.
Thank you so much.
All right, we are back on the after show on YouTube and on podcast too. So
here we are.
I should have hung on. He had one more question. I should have just carried it. I could have carried him through the break, but all right. Well, we're going to go to the phone. We're going to talk to Steve in Idaho with a 2011 Chevy Silverado. How you doing, Steve?
Chevy Silverado.
All right, I lost you, Steve. The phone was. I'm pushing the wrong button. I'm sure it's me. Let's start over. We're going back to the phone. We're talking to Steve in Idaho with a 2011 Silverado. Go ahead, Steve.
Good morning.
Hey.
I've got a 2011, a 1500.
Okay.
With a 5.3, and a couple days ago. So when I take off from a stop sign or something, you can just hear and see the RPMs go up quite a bit, and the truck will move, but it doesn't feel like the transmission is grabbing. And I've priced out a new transmission at like $5,000. And is there a cheaper thing I should start with?
Well, it depends on what the vehicle's got going on. I mean, how many miles did you say are on this, or maybe you didn't?
I didn't. It's 210.
Okay, so you're up there high enough on the miles that it's very plausible that the transmission itself is just done, tired. Because we had callers in the show before where they find out that, hey, their fluid's in great shape. They don't, it's not burned up. And they find out they've got problems in the valve body, pressure solenoids. There's just things that cause it not to operate correctly, range selector switches that are bad. But it's probably not that with the miles that you have and the description that you give. So when you get into that, your options are this. It seems like if you have a friend and somebody that's handy and yourself, and you wanted to take that transmission out and possibly rebuild it, I know people that do it, that have done it. It's complicated, but you can buy kits and you can rebuild transmissions. There are transmission shops that will have specialties sometimes in certain transmissions because there's so many of them. Like, this is a very common transmission. There are quite a few shops that say, you know what, we rebuild those in-house. This is what we charge, and it's a little more affordable than the typical, GM reman or one of the big brand name remans that might be out there. And so, and then they do an in-house warranty because they've done a bunch of them and they know what they're doing. That's another option. Yeah. And you've always got the option also of looking for a recycled original equipment used transmission that came out of a vehicle that got wrecked, that was driving down the road and got rolled over or hit in the back end, hit in the side, and their transmission was working just fine when it failed. And you can find one of those, and you got to make sure, and in this day and age, it's getting a lot easier, and we're happy about that. But make sure you know what you're buying. You can look and see. There's no reason not to find out the complete VIN number of the vehicle it's coming out of. You can do a mileage check on that to make sure that they're being straight with you if you find it somewhere. Car-part.com is a resource that we promote. It's a independent clearinghouse for professional auto recyclers all across the country. So you can search by your make and model, and car-part.com. And you can find out what might be near you or what could be shipped to you for a used component that would save you quite a bit of money. But you want to make sure you know what you're buying and that they've got a warranty on it. Like in our particular case, we're based out of a professional certified auto recycling facility for our show. But in our particular case, we've got, when we inventory the vehicles, we take pictures. We take pictures of the vehicle, the inside. We show the odometer lit up so you can see the miles. We also take a YouTube video around it if we can, with the vehicle running. We'll engage the transmission. Obviously, we're not doing a hardcore road test on it or anything like that, but we're engaging the transmission, and we're looking at the condition of the vehicle. And so we've got vehicles that we buy that have got 300,000 miles on them that are worn out, and somebody just got rid of them because the engine was burning a ton of oil, and they're just done with it, and it's rusty in our part of the country. But then they tell us that they just put a remanufactured transmission in it 50,000 miles ago. Guess what? That's a really good part for someone. And so you just got to know what you're getting and make sure that you can verify the information, and that can give you an option. Now, the last thing I'll say on that is if you do buy recycled original equipment used, make sure that your installation follows the same process as if you bought the biggest brand name remanufactured transmission, because you have the same problems with installation as you would with a new one. You have to make sure you get it programmed correctly. You have to make sure that the coolers are completely flushed out or replaced so that you have the correct fluid flow. And you have to make sure that everything is installed correctly, torqued correctly, that whoever's doing it knows how to line up the torque converter.
And programmed.
Like I said, the programming. All these things are identically the same, whether you're buying one that came out of another wrecked vehicle or if you're buying a remanufactured one that came from the top biggest name vendor that you can think of. You install it with the same processes and procedures. So those would be kind of the options at your disposal as you think about that problem.
Okay. Excellent. Yep. Oh, yeah. They quoted me as on a rebuild. It was like $300 cheaper. For $300 more, you get a remanufactured transmission with a 3-year warranty.
Mm-hmm.
And the rebuild had I think a 60-day warranty.
Yeah, there's going to be different options available. And one thing,
that much money into a truck.
One thing I'll tell you is that what we find, and we sell some of these things, but there are manufacturers that make the identical unit on remanufactured, and we have the option of buying it and reselling it at one price with X warranty, or they'll sell us the same unit at X price with warranty. Guess which one's more expensive? More warranty. It's the same unit that they're selling you. They're just selling different warranties with it. So that's also something to be aware of.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make a note of that.
We could only be psychic and know how long it lasts.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time with that. Thank you.
You bet. Take care.
All right. Enjoy your day.
All right, we're going to jump right back into the next one. We're going to talk to Paul with a 2006 Infiniti. How you doing, Paul?
Very good. It's more transmission issues. My question is, can I use a regular Dextron Mercon 4? The specification calls for some Nissan
NSN1 and at Nissan, was it NS1 or NS2 for the Nissan Trans? Is that what they're asking for?
Oh, I can't remember, but the price per quart stopped me in my tracks. And
yeah, don't do that. There's alternatives. You can't use the Dextron. That won't work. But they do make a universal. If you got it in there, you got to get it out. But then they make a universal. It's not universal. It's an aftermarket fluid. In fact, I was just going through straightening up a tool room the other day and organizing some fluids, and I noticed all these quarts of. It said. Multi-vehicle.
Valvoline?
Valvoline, Haviland, a couple others too that I think Master Pro, different fluids. What I would do, so here's the best way. The AutoZone people are experts at the counter on this kind of stuff. Go to your local AutoZone store, ask the counter person, say, hey, I've got an 06 Infiniti. What do you show? And they're going to look up their interchange and they're going to say, I have this fluid available for your car, and it's typically much more affordable than Nissan. Because when you're looking at a quart of Nissan fluid, and I don't know, some of that stuff is $18 to $24, $5, $6 a quart. You're like, no.
I think it was 11, but anyway.
Well, 11's not near as bad as 18 or more, but some of them it's crazy money. And then you can pick up quarts of fluid that are great fluids that do exactly the same thing, provide as good or better protection at AutoZone, and it's going to save you money. And that's what we would do in this case. But I would only use that fluid. I wouldn't go with the. Yeah, you don't need to go with the factory fluid.
Their catalogs do a nice job of multi-compatibility.
Yeah. We use that all the time. In fact, there's some of them where I'll just get on the phone and I'll talk to my rep down at AutoZone and say, hey, what do you got that fits this? And just go ahead and send it out to me, because that's the best way to do it. And as a shop, I've got a button right on my dashboard, basically on my computer, that I can hit AutoZone, look at their catalog, and then it just magically shows up. So that fluid interchange, though, has been a lifesaver for me.
That's a lot quicker than reading the back of every bottle on the shelf.
Yeah, I just happened to read it. So I was familiar with your car just the other day. I was reading the back of the bottle and went, oh, this is NS1 compatible and NS2, which is the Nissan Infiniti fluid.
Yep. I pull a tandem dump trailer with this thing, and a buddy of mine, he's got one just like it, and he burnt his tranny up and had to part with the truck. And so I don't want to go that way.
What kind of Infiniti is it? You got my curiosity piqued when you said you pulled a tandem dump trailer with it.
Yeah, it's as big as a Suburban. It's the QX56.
Okay, it's an Armada.
He's bulky.
It's a Nissan Armada.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's what he burned up.
Beast. Yeah, no. You don't want to burn that tranny up, because we priced one out to somebody and they said, no, thanks, I'm not going to fit. Because I think they had 200,000 miles. Otherwise, they would. I think theirs was an 07.
Pretty strong tranny overall.
So they would have fixed it. But the certified used trans, I think, was like $3,800 or something. So they went, no.
Yeah, because it's still that age. It's just amazing.
It's worth one of these with 120,000 would have been worth it.
I think he was using overdrive and cruise control while he was towing that trailer to Florida, but
lots of torque.
He wouldn't confess.
They'll
you wouldn't confess. Oh, that's funny.
Oh my.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
You bet.
AutoZone, we got one in this town.
Well, that's good. You can find one just about anywhere, but I know, there's a lot of shops that I've talked to lately, and they said, we heard you on the Hood Show talking about AutoZone. We didn't realize that you used AutoZone at your shop. Well, we don't mention all the shops we use on the show often, but yeah, we use AutoZone because they've got people at the counter that they'll know what they're doing, and they're right there for us. I mean, I just literally click the button on my screen and they send the parts out, which makes it that is super easy. As a
integrated
shop
into
one,
our
I'd say.
shop management system.
Yeah, but when you're looking at the auto parts stores, you got to think of them for more than just a place that has a part you can buy and you can pick up. They know the interchange when you're looking for fluids, all sorts of stuff they've got on their computers that are more above and beyond than what you'd normally think of. So, thanks, Paul.
Good to know.
You bet.
You
Take
bet.
care. All right, just one more thing I was going to mention here. So this news article came up and it caught my eye. So recently I've been in a few cars. I was in a van, a big van. Why am I losing my mind?
Transit or ProMaster or
bigger Sprinter.
Sprinter.
Huge thing, high van. And as I was driving on the road, it was windy and it gave me a wind warning.
Oh, really?
So you got a wind warning. Be careful. You could tip over. Oh, okay. Another one I was driving the other day. It's Doug's car. It's destroyed now, so it doesn't count. His kid's car, the wrecked one, Doug. So I'm headed down the road with it, and I hit it was pouring rain. So this was a few months ago when he had it in for some service work, and as I was driving it, I hit a puddle, and it was large enough that it set the traction control off, and it said vehicle has left the road, proceed with caution. It thought I was driving on a dirt road. Didn't think I'd crash. It just thought I was driving on gravel. So it said, you're in a slippery condition. And it spoke to me. I went, what? Did you ever hear that thing talk, Doug, on ice or anything? So it talked to me. So the NTSB wants to add mandatory, just one more thing to raise the price, right?
Yeah,
After the strikes and everything, let's
cram in some more technology they have to have.
They want to add anti-speeding tech in cars. Now, I've been in cars that on the dash, it's very common now for many cars to say what the speed limit is.
Yep.
Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
I think your truck says
Oh, yeah. And
55.
it shows what the posted speed
Yep.
is and what your speed is right beside each other.
They want, at minimum, a warning. So it says, beep, 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 you are exceeding the speed limit. Not just a little light that says, turns red when and flashes like some of them do.
That's what my German car does.
So my Yukon, when I exceed the speed limit, it changes to red from white, I think.
Yep.
So
It
I know
knows.
I'm over. Yeah, I'm like, okay. Now, I would say it's 98% accurate, 95%, because there's some times where I look and they've changed it recently and they don't have a clue, so they don't know. But for the most part, it's good.
Pop-up construction zones sometimes catch them off guard.
Yeah, and they change them now and then. I know mine is not. We've got a area where the speed limit was just dropped to 65, and it's still showing.
Yeah, that interstate
80.
outside of Sioux Falls.
Yeah, and that's
when did
going
they do
all-
that?
A couple months ago.
Yeah.
They're going all the way to the Minnesota border with it now, Shannon. So it's coming.
Yeah, we knew over almost to Brandon to the road
Yep.
construction.
It's coming in sections, so just watch that. They're just trying to slow people down.
If you didn't know that and you're listening from the area, you need to.
There's a few people, Chris, that are getting tickets, so be careful. He didn't in there, but right next to that he did. Long story there. I think he told it already.
Yeah,
but
he did.
So anyways, they've got these warnings. Well, now they want to give a verbal warning and alert you, but what they want and what they're going to get are two different things, because at minimum, they want the warning. If they have their way, they want it to shut the car, to slow the car. Anti-speeding tech. So if, let's say, the limit's 55 and you're driving 60, it gives you a warning. If you drive 61, it limits the speed. It just is electronic throttle. They have the ability to do that. The cars do. If they put it into their software to say, okay, if you go 61 in a 55, we're going to shut you down to 60. If you try going 80, you can't do it. So they could force these cars to slow down. And I started thinking, how would they do that? And in the past, they've been able to do these things legally by using a different thing. And they use like national security acts and say, well, it's what is it? Who is it? The security people that Homeland Security.
Oh, it's the
They
NSA,
say
Homeland Security.
You're a threat to the environment by driving faster and using more fuel, right? So they use that as an excuse. What a load of crap, right? But they can do it, and they come up with ways. So
Imagine somebody come in the shop and say, my car won't get past 61 miles an hour.
And we'll
It's
go,
only on this road.
It's supposed to do that. What's the speed limit? Oh, I didn't know that. So and maybe people will come up with ways to get tuners to go around it. But if they classify it as an emissions law, then they just got to be careful because
don't give me any ideas, Russ.
Oh, they're way smarter than me to know how to trick the consumers. But yeah, I saw this and I thought, great, just what we need. I remember this all starting.
Well, we
years
talked
ago.
about this with telematics a long time ago.
Yeah, and it started with we get the anti-collision third brake light on the Pontiac, the T1000 or whatever, the first one.
2000 or 95, 6.
86.
86. Wow,
Yeah.
I kept going back decades and I wasn't far enough.
And in Canada, it required for a while, they had the yellow turn signals. You had to have amber turn signals in the rear. So if you imported an American car, you had to put the amber lights in your back window for turns or change the lens. We get those lenses that go, that's crazy. You got an amber turn signal in your truck or in your Chevy truck instead of a red one. And so a lot of them now, they're making them universal and they're putting the amber lights in some of these things. But you see all sorts of weird stuff and weird rules, and it's supposed to be safety wise, but some of it helps with safety, but some of these features, if they don't work, are actually make the car unsafe. Like ABS, when ABS is not functioning and it goes off by itself, that's not safe. So anyways, just another rant for the day.
That was a rant.
Yeah, but
imagine being beside a semi that it had to move over because somebody crowded them on a yield and you could not accelerate fast enough to get out of their way.
Sometimes accelerating is better than not being able to, than hitting the brakes. You can, if you hit
the brakes, you're going to cause a massive collision because people behind you is going to, oh boy.
That's true.
Yeah, you need both.
All right, well, we're out of here. This has been another episode Under the Hood. Make sure if you'd like, please do us the favor and click the like button at least on this video, even if you're not subscribing. Just liking it does us wonders. I watched the numbers here back the last few weeks, and the videos that have even, a dozen likes on them are way ahead of the ones that have just a few, and I can see everybody watching. So just
signs of life. We need some signs of life.
The YouTube wants to know that you are alive out there, and we want to know you're alive too. Thanks for the calls, everybody.